Jake Morrison sat in his chair like he owned the place. His feet were up on the fancy table and he was eating an apple. The sound of his chewing echoed through the massive council chamber. Around him, aliens from dozens of different worlds watched with growing anger. The Galactic Council Station was the biggest thing humans had ever seen when they first arrived here 50 years ago. It floated in space near Proxima Centauri, a giant metal city that housed representatives from every civilized species in the galaxy. The main chamber could hold 10,000 beings, and today it was packed. High Executor Zarthek stood at the center podium. He was tall, even for a Valerian, with blue-gray skin that shimmered under the lights. His forearms moved in patterns that meant he was very serious about what he was saying. His large black eyes stared directly at Jake. For 3,000 years, Zarthek's voice boomed through the translation devices, this galaxy has known peace. Perfect, complete peace. No wars, no conflicts. No bloodshed. The Galactic Accord has brought harmony to over 2 million worlds and 500 species. Jake took another bite of his apple. The crunch was loud in the sudden silence. But one species, Zarthek continued, refuses to accept this peace. One species continues to build weapons. One species maintains armies. One species spreads across the galaxy like a virus, bringing their violent ways to peaceful worlds. Around the chamber, other alien delegates began to murmur agreement. The Mindari, with their large heads and pale skin, nodded in unison. Their psychic abilities let them share thoughts, so they always agreed on everything. The Corvin representatives, built like walking tanks with thick armor plating, banged their fists on their tables in approval. Humanity, Zarthek said the word like it tasted bad, has had 50 years to change, 50 years to become civilized, 50 years to abandon their primitive ways and join the peaceful galaxy we have built. Jake finished his apple and tossed the core into a small trash bin. It made a soft thud. Several aliens jumped at the sound. Instead, Zarthek's voice grew louder. They have built more weapons. They have expanded their military. They have turned peaceful colonies into armed camps. They have violated every principle of the Galactic Accord. The chamber filled with angry sounds, clicking, buzzing, and growling from dozens of different species, all of them directed at the one human in the room. Therefore, Zarthek raised all four arms. The Galactic Council has reached a decision. By unanimous vote of all 499 member species, humanity is declared a threat to galactic peace. Jake started to smile. It was not a nice smile. The terms are simple, Zarthek continued. Humanity has 72 hours to dismantle all military forces, destroy all weapons, and submit to Council oversight. If they refuse, the combined fleets of the galaxy will enforce compliance. This is not a negotiation. This is a final warning. The chamber erupted in cheers and applause. Aliens who had never agreed on anything were celebrating together. They had finally solved the human problem. Jake Morrison stood up slowly. He was not a big man, average height with brown hair and ordinary clothes. He looked like any human you might see walking down a street on Earth. But something about the way he moved made the chamber go quiet. Then Jake started laughing. It started as a chuckle, but it grew louder. Soon he was laughing so hard he had to hold his sides. Tears ran down his face. The sound echoed through the chamber, bouncing off the walls and coming back even louder. The aliens stared at him like he had lost his mind. This was not the reaction they expected. They expected fear. They expected begging. They expected desperate attempts to negotiate. They did not expect laughter. Jake laughed for a full minute before he could speak. When he finally stopped, he wiped his eyes and looked around the chamber with the biggest grin anyone had ever seen. "Oh, wow," Jake said, still chuckling. "You really did it." "You actually did it," Zarthek's forearms trembled with rage. "You find this amusing, human? Your species faces extinction and you laugh?" Jake nodded enthusiastically. "I find it hilarious. Do you know how long we've been waiting for this day?" "Waiting?" The word came from Council Speaker Yith-Ak, a spider-like creature from the Arachnid Collective. "Waiting for what?" "For you to finally grow a spine and declare war on us," Jake said cheerfully. "Seriously, we had bets going. Some people thought it would take another 100 years. I had my money on 50. Looks like I lose that bet." The chamber was dead silent now. Even the translator devices seemed confused. "You wanted us to declare war?" Zarthek asked slowly. "Wanted it? We've been practically begging for it." Jake clapped his hands together. Do you have any idea how boring the last 50 years have been? We keep building up our military and you keep making diplomatic protests. We establish colonies in strategic locations, and you send us strongly worded letters. We've been doing everything short of putting up a sign that says, "Please attack us," and you finally got the hint. The Mindari delegate, Saitar 9, leaned forward. His large eyes glowed with psychic energy as he tried to read Jake's thoughts. After a moment, he pulled back with a confused expression. "I sense no fear in this human," Saitar 9 announced. "No desperation, no regret. He is genuinely happy about this development." "Of course I'm happy," Jake said. "This is the best news I've heard in decades. Finally, we get to find out if all that preparation was worth it." "Preparation?" Zarthek demanded. Jake's grin got even wider. "Oh, you sweet, innocent aliens. You really don't understand what you just did, do you?" Before anyone could answer, Jake held up his hand. "You know what? I think I need some time to process this wonderful news. I request a 72-hour recess to gather my thoughts and inform my government of your decision." "Granted," Zarthek said automatically, following standard council procedures. "Excellent." Jake walked toward the chamber exit, whistling a happy tune. Just before he reached the door, he turned back to face the assembled delegates. "Oh, and one more thing," Jake said, his voice suddenly serious. "You might want to spend these 3 days saying goodbye to your families. You know, just in case." With that cheerful suggestion, Jake Morrison left the chamber, leaving behind 500 confused and increasingly worried alien representatives. In the silence that followed, Zarthek turned to his aide. "Contact our military commanders. Tell them to begin preparations immediately." "Should we be concerned about the humans' reaction?" the aide asked. Zarthek looked toward the door Jake had just used. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had not experienced in 3,000 years. Fear. Admiral Lisa Parker was drinking coffee when the message arrived. She sat in her office 3 miles underground beneath the city of Geneva. The room looked ordinary, with a desk, some chairs, and pictures of her family on the walls. But this office was the most secure place on Earth, and Lisa Parker was the most dangerous person in the galaxy. The holographic display showed Jake Morrison's face. He was still grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Lisa, you're not going to believe this," Jake said from the recording. "They did it. The council actually declared war on us. Unanimous vote. 72 hours to surrender or face the combined fleets of the galaxy." Lisa Parker set down her coffee cup very carefully. Then she started laughing. It started as a small chuckle, but it grew quickly. Soon she was laughing so hard she had to hold on to her desk. The sound echoed through the underground facility, and within minutes her staff came running to see what was happening. General Ryan Cooper was the first to arrive. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. When he saw Lisa laughing at Jake's message, he started laughing too. "They actually did it." Ryan pounded his fist on the desk. "After all these years of waiting, they finally grew some backbone." Colonel Amy Davis ran into the room next. She was younger than the others, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she heard the news, she had to sit down. "This is really happening?" Amy asked. "They're really going to attack us?" "Best day of my life," Lisa said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Contact President Martinez. Tell him it's time for Operation Ragnarok." Amy's fingers flew over her tablet, sending coded messages to human colonies across the galaxy. Each message was the same. 3 simple words that humanity had been waiting 3,000 years to hear. The bell tolls. Within an hour, the War Council was assembled in the main briefing room. 25 people sat around a circular table, each one representing a different part of humanity's secret military machine. They had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. President Carlos Martinez appeared on the main screen from his office in Washington. He was smiling too, but his smile was colder than the others. "Ladies and gentlemen," Martinez said, "today is the day our ancestors dreamed of, the day we get to show the galaxy what humans really are." Lisa stood at the head of the table and activated the holographic display. The room filled with images that would have terrified any alien who saw them. "For 3,000 years," Lisa began, "the galaxy has enjoyed peace. They dismantled their weapons. They converted their warships into cargo haulers. They turned their soldiers into farmers and artists. They thought war was a thing of the past. The display showed peaceful alien worlds with no defenses, space stations with no weapons, and fleets of ships that looked more like floating cities than military vessels. But humans, Lisa continued, humans remembered something the galaxy forgot. Peace is not the natural state of the universe. Peace is what happens when everyone is too afraid to fight. Ryan Cooper stood up next. Every human colony was built with war in mind. Every civilian ship carries hidden weapons. Every research station is actually a fortress. Every mining operation is a weapons factory. Amy activated another display. This one showed the true scope of human civilization. What the aliens saw as peaceful expansion was actually the largest military buildup in galactic history. Mars isn't just a terraforming project, Amy explained. It's the largest weapons manufacturing facility ever built. The asteroid belt mining operations? They've been producing antimatter warheads for 2 centuries. Those agricultural worlds in the Centauri system? Training grounds for our special forces. Colonel Ben Clark, head of the Space Navy, pointed to another section of the display. The cargo ships that carry food and supplies between our colonies. Each one has enough firepower to level a city. The passenger liners that take tourists to see alien worlds? They're actually stealth bombers. The room filled with excited chatter as officers discussed their preparations. These were people who had spent their entire lives building the most sophisticated war machine the galaxy had ever seen, hidden in plain sight. Dr. Angela Green, head of Human Strategic Research, stood up slowly. She was a small woman with white hair, but everyone in the room feared her more than any general or admiral. The aliens think technology wins wars, Angela said quietly. They're wrong. Knowledge wins wars, and we know things about warfare they've forgotten ever existed. She activated her own display, showing weapons and tactics that had been developed in secret human laboratories. Stellar engineering weapons that can make stars go supernova, gravity bombs that can turn planets into black holes, nanobotic plagues that can rewrite alien DNA, time dilation fields that can age enemy fleets 1,000 years in seconds. The room went quiet. Even these hardened military leaders were impressed by what human science had achieved. But those are just the fun toys, Angela continued with a small smile. The real weapons are the things we learned from studying alien psychology for 50 years. We know exactly how to break their minds, their cultures, and their will to fight. Major Kate Sullivan, head of the Psi Corps, spoke up next. The Mindari think they're the only psychic species in the galaxy. They're wrong. We've had psychic humans for 800 years. We've been hiding them, training them, and learning every psychic technique the aliens have, plus a few they don't. General Dan Murphy, who looked like a grandfather but was actually humanity's expert on ground warfare, chuckled. The Corvan Republic used to be warriors, used to be. Now they're so civilized they've forgotten which end of a gun the bullets come out of. Our basic infantry could defeat their best elite units. President Martinez leaned forward on the screen. The question isn't whether we can win this war. The question is how much of the galaxy we want left standing when it's over. Lisa looked around the room at her officers. These were the people who had dedicated their lives to a war that might never come. Now that it was here, they were ready. Our orders are simple, Lisa announced. Make them remember why humans were called the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Make them understand that peace exists only because we allow it. And make sure they never forget this lesson. She stood up straighter, her voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years of human preparation. Gentlemen and ladies, humanity has been at peace for 3 millennia, but humans have never stopped being warriors. Today we remind the galaxy what that means. The War Council dispersed to their duties, each one eager to finally use the weapons and tactics they had spent lifetimes perfecting. As they left, Lisa remained at the table looking at the holographic display of human colonies across the galaxy. Each one was about to reveal its true nature. Each one was about to show the aliens that humanity's greatest achievement wasn't joining galactic civilization, it was learning how to destroy it completely while smiling and shaking hands. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and humanity was ready to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. War Commander Vextar had never seen anything like it. His fleet of 10,000 ships stretched across space in perfect formation, the largest military force assembled in 2,000 years. Every major species had contributed their best vessels and finest warriors. The combined might of galactic civilization was about to teach humanity a lesson about the price of defying peace. The Sol system appeared on his tactical display like any other star system. 1 yellow star, 8 planets, and the usual collection of asteroids and space debris. His sensors showed civilian traffic moving normally between Earth and Mars. Cargo ships carried supplies to the outer colonies. Passenger liners moved tourists around the system. Everything looked peaceful and defenseless. "This will be easier than we thought," Vextar said to his bridge crew. He was a Corvan, built like a walking tank with thick gray armor plating and forearms ending in claws. His species had been warriors once before the peace. Now they were the closest thing the galaxy had to soldiers, though they hadn't fought a real war in living memory. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from a human vessel. A cargo ship called the New Horizon. Put it on screen," Vextar ordered. The face that appeared was that of a middle-aged human woman with brown hair tied back in a ponytail. She wore a simple blue uniform and was drinking something from a mug. Behind her, Vextar could see the ordinary bridge of a cargo hauler. "This is Captain Helen Foster of the human cargo vessel New Horizon," the woman said cheerfully. "You folks seem to have brought quite a party to our neighborhood." Vextar leaned forward in his command chair. "I am War Commander Vextar of the Galactic Council Fleet. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Helen Foster took a sip from her mug and smiled. "Oh, I don't think that's going to happen. See, we've been looking forward to this for a very long time. You are one cargo ship against 10,000 warships." Vexitar growled. "Surrender now and your death will be quick." "One cargo ship?" Helen laughed. "Oh, honey, you really don't understand what you're looking at, do you?" She pressed a button on her console. The New Horizon began to change. What had looked like a simple cargo hauler suddenly extended weapon pods from hidden compartments. Armor plating slid into place over the hull. The ship grew larger as sections that had been folded inside expanded outward. Within seconds, the harmless cargo ship had become a sleek warship, bristling with weapons. But that was just the beginning. Across the Sol system, other objects began to change too. Asteroids split open to reveal massive gun batteries. Space stations unfolded like metal flowers, becoming fortress platforms. The cargo ships and passenger liners all underwent the same transformation as the New Horizon, revealing themselves to be warships in disguise. Even more shocking, objects that Vextar's sensors had identified as space debris were powering up. Chunks of metal that had been floating dead in space for decades suddenly came to life, sprouting weapons and engines. "What is this?" Vextar demanded, his forearms trembling with shock. "This," Helen Foster said, still smiling, "is what happens when a species spends 3,000 years preparing for war, while everyone else plays pretend civilization." The tactical display showed the true scope of what they faced. The Sol system wasn't defended by a few human ships. It was one giant weapons platform. Every asteroid, every space station, every ship, even the orbital satellites around Earth, were all armed and ready for battle. "Impossible," breathed Vextar's tactical officer, a thin Valerian with shaking hands. "Our intelligence said humans had maybe 100 military vessels in their entire fleet." "Your intelligence was right," Helen said, having heard the comment through their open channel. "We do have about 100 ships that we call military vessels. Everything else we just call Tuesday." Lieutenant Ben Clark's voice came over the communication system from his fighter squadron. "Phoenix Squadron ready for engagement, Captain Foster. All birds are green and eager." Vextar looked at his sensor display. What he had thought were maintenance pods launching from human ships were actually fighters. Hundreds of them moving with precision that spoke of years of training. "This is your last chance," Helen Foster announced to the Galactic Fleet. "Turn around and go home. Pretend this never happened. We'll even let you keep your dignity." "Never," Vextar roared. "All ships, open fire. Destroy them all." The Galactic Fleet unleashed everything they had. Energy beams, missile barrages, and exotic weapons that hadn't been used in centuries filled space with deadly light. It was the largest display of firepower the galaxy had seen since the ancient wars. The human response was immediate and devastating. The New Horizon's weapons fired once. A single beam of energy that seemed to bend space itself struck Vextar's flagship. The massive Corvan dreadnought, built to withstand anything the galaxy could throw at it, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. "Relativistic kill weapon," Helen Foster explained casually. "We accelerate a tiny particle to 99% of light speed and let physics do the rest." "Your ship didn't explode? It just stopped existing in this dimension." Around the Sol system, the hidden human weapons began their deadly work. Asteroids fired beams that could cut through multiple ships at once. The disguised cargo ships revealed weapons that could destroy entire squadrons with a single shot. The fighters moved like they could predict where enemy ships would be before the aliens knew themselves. But the most terrifying thing was how the humans fought. They didn't just attack, they communicated while doing it. Ben Clark's voice came over the radio as his squadron tore through a wing of Mindari interceptors. Contact. 6 bogies at 2 o'clock. Jimmy, take the high road. Susan, come in from below. This is almost too easy, people. The casual banter horrified the alien pilots. These humans were treating warfare like a game, chatting and joking while they killed with frightening efficiency. Target acquired. Oh, this one's trying to run. That's cute. Missiles away. Scratch one more. Captain Foster watched the battle from her bridge, sipping her coffee like she was watching a sporting event. Ben, try to leave a few alive. We need someone to carry word back to the council. Copy that, Captain. We'll try to be gentle. Within 2 hours, it was over. The great galactic fleet that had taken months to assemble was either destroyed or fleeing in panic. Less than 1,000 ships escaped the Sol system, and most of those were so damaged they barely made it to the nearest starbase. Vextar found himself aboard a half-destroyed escape pod, his magnificent fleet reduced to wreckage floating in space. His communication system crackled to life one last time. War Commander Vextar. Helen Foster's voice was still cheerful. This is Captain Foster. I hope you learned something today. What are you? Vextar whispered. His warrior's pride broken completely. We're what you created when you gave predators 3,000 years to prepare, Helen replied. We're what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. We're what the galaxy forgot existed. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of 3 millennia of human preparation. We're not just humans, Commander. We're the reminder that peace is a choice, not a law of nature. And today we chose to remind you why that choice matters. The transmission ended, leaving Vextar alone in his escape pod, surrounded by the wreckage of galactic civilization's greatest military effort. Behind him, the Sol system continued its normal operations. Cargo ships went back to carrying supplies. Passenger liners resumed their tourist routes. The weapons disappeared back into their hiding places. To anyone arriving later, it would look like nothing had happened at all. But Vextar knew the truth. The galaxy had just learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their hidden fleets. It was the fact that they had never stopped being warriors, even when the whole galaxy had forgotten what warriors were. News of the Sol system massacre spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On every civilized world, beings who had never known war suddenly understood what terror meant. The impossible had happened. The humans had not just survived the greatest military force ever assembled, they had destroyed it in a matter of hours. Admiral Tony Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Vengeance as it dropped out of hyperspace above Valeria Prime, the homeworld of the Valerian Empire. Around him, a fleet of 200 human ships materialized from nothing, their stealth systems finally shutting down after decades of hiding in plain sight. The Valerians were considered the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. Their cities floated in the clouds of their gas giant homeworld, held aloft by gravity manipulation technology that other species could barely understand. Their ships were marvels of engineering, sleek and beautiful like works of art. But as Tony looked at the tactical display, he saw that art was no match for function. Sir, his communications officer reported, the Valerian Defense Fleet is moving to intercept. 300 ships, all their latest technology. Tony nodded calmly. Have they tried to contact us? Yes, sir. High Admiral Kelthera is demanding to know our intentions. Put her on screen. The main display showed a tall Valerian female with the characteristic blue-gray skin and large black eyes of her species. She wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself, shifting colors that hurt to look at directly. Her forearms were spread wide in what Tony recognized as a gesture of authority. Human fleet. Kelthera's voice carried the confidence of 3 millennia of technological superiority. You will withdraw immediately. Valerian space is protected by weapons you cannot comprehend. Tony smiled politely. Hi, Admiral Kelthera. I'm Admiral Tony Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. I'm afraid we can't withdraw just yet. You see, your government declared war on us. Your primitive species cannot hope to match Valerian technology, Kelthera replied coldly. Our weapons operate on principles your scientists have not yet discovered. You know what? Tony said thoughtfully. You're probably right. Our scientists are pretty dumb. That's why we use engineers instead." He nodded to his weapons officer. "Fire one warning shot." The Vengeance's main gun powered up for exactly 1 second. A beam of coherent energy, focused through human engineering rather than alien science, reached out across space and touched one of the Valerian ships. The vessel didn't explode. Instead, it simply ceased to function. Every system shut down simultaneously, leaving it drifting dead in space. "That's interesting," Tony mused. "Your ships are really beautiful, Admiral. All those graceful curves and artistic lines. But here's the thing about art. It's not designed to take a punch." Kelthera's confidence wavered. "Impossible. Our ships are protected by quantum barriers that cannot be penetrated by kinetic weapons." "Who said anything about kinetic weapons?" Tony asked. "That was an electromagnetic pulse specifically designed to disrupt Valerian technology. We've had 50 years to study your ships every time you visited human space. Did you think we were just being friendly?" The human fleet spread out in a formation that looked random, but was actually the result of 3,000 years of tactical development. Each ship moved to a position that maximized their firepower, while minimizing the effectiveness of Valerian weapons. "You see," Tony continued, "your technology is amazing. It can do things that seem like magic to less advanced species, but it's also incredibly complex, which means it has more ways to break." The Valerian fleet opened fire with weapons that bent space and time, that manipulated gravity, and turned energy into matter. It was a display of power that should have ended the battle before it began, but the human ships were ready. Their shields weren't based on exotic physics or mysterious forces. They were simple, crude barriers of metal and energy that did one thing very well. They absorbed punishment. "Our turn," Tony announced. The human response was brutally simple. No exotic weapons, no reality-bending technology, just very large guns that fired very fast projectiles with very precise aim. The beautiful Valerian ships began to die. On the other side of the galaxy, the Mindari Collective was learning a different lesson about human warfare. Major Kate Sullivan floated in the meditation chamber of her ship, surrounded by 50 other human psychics. They were about to engage the most powerful telepathic species known to exist. The Mindari homeworld was a place of crystal cities and floating gardens, where thoughts flowed like rivers between millions of connected minds. They had given up individual consciousness centuries ago, becoming a true hive mind that could process information faster than any computer. Psitar Prime, the collective consciousness that spoke for all Mindari, reached out with mental tentacles to crush the human minds it found approaching their world, and found something impossible. The humans weren't just resistant to psychic attack. They were reflecting it back, amplified and focused into a weapon that could shatter minds. "Surprised?" Kate asked, her thoughts cutting through the Mindari mental network like a sword. "We've known about you for 800 years. Did you think we'd waste that time?" The human psychics had spent centuries learning to fight beings who could read minds and control thoughts. They had developed techniques that turned psychic abilities against themselves, creating mental feedback loops that could drive a telepath insane. But more than that, they had learned to hide. Every human psychic was trained from childhood to appear completely normal to telepathic scans. The Mindari had studied humans for 50 years and never detected a single psychic among them. Now they faced 50 humans, whose mental disciplines had been honed, specifically to fight creatures like them. The battle was fought entirely in the realm of thought and will. Crystal cities cracked as the collective consciousness that had guided the Mindari for millennia began to fracture under assault from minds that refused to be dominated. Meanwhile, on the war world of Corvin, General Dan Murphy was demonstrating why humans had once been called the galaxy's apex predators. The Corvin Republic had been warriors once, before the peace. Their cities were built like fortresses, their people bred for battle. But 3,000 years of civilization had made them soft. They remembered the forms of warfare but had forgotten its substance. Dan Murphy was 65 years old and looked like someone's grandfather. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations and carried only a basic sidearm. But he had spent 40 years studying every aspect of Corvin military doctrine, and he knew exactly how to break them. The Corvin defenders outnumbered his human forces 10-1. They had better armor, bigger weapons, and the advantage of fighting on their home ground. By every measure of traditional warfare, they should have won easily. But Dan Murphy didn't fight traditional warfare. His soldiers moved through Corvan cities like ghosts, appearing and disappearing before the defenders could react. They used tactics that the Corvan had never seen, weapons that turned the aliens' own strengths against them, and strategies that seemed to predict every move the defenders would make. The problem with you folks, Dan told the Corvan commander over a radio link, is that you learned to fight from books. We learned from doing. The human soldiers didn't just defeat the Corvan defenders. They demoralized them completely, showing them that all their proud warrior traditions were just empty ceremonies compared to the real thing. But the most terrifying moment came when Dr. Angela Green activated the Doomsday Protocol. From hidden bases throughout the galaxy, human scientists began to deploy weapons that violated every treaty and moral principle that galactic civilization had ever established. Stars began to flicker as stellar engineering weapons destabilized their nuclear reactions. Planets cracked as gravity bombs created artificial black holes in their cores. Entire star systems went dark as weapons that could manipulate time itself aged them millions of years in minutes. The message was clear. Humanity had not just prepared to fight a war. They had prepared to end all wars forever by destroying anyone who tried to start one. On 1,000 worlds, alien leaders who had declared war on humanity now faced a choice: surrender completely, or watch their civilizations vanish from existence. Most chose surrender. But for those who didn't, humanity had one final demonstration prepared, a weapon that didn't destroy planets or stars but something far more precious to any thinking being: hope itself. 6 months after the first shot was fired, the war was over, not because humanity had conquered every world in the galaxy, but because they had proven they could destroy it all if they chose to. The lesson was complete, and the surviving alien civilizations finally understood what they had awakened. Admiral Lisa Parker stood in what used to be the Galactic Council chamber. The great space station still floated near Proxima Centauri, but now it flew human flags. The massive room that had once held representatives from 500 species now held only a few dozen beings, the surviving leaders of the galaxy's major civilizations. They knelt. High Executor Zarthek, who had started this war with such confidence, now trembled as he waited for humanity's judgment. His blue-gray skin had turned pale, and his forearms shook with the weight of what his decision had cost the galaxy. "We thought," Zarthek whispered, "we thought we had evolved beyond war." Lisa looked down at him with something that might have been pity. "You evolved beyond defending yourselves. We evolved beyond needing to." Around the chamber, other alien leaders waited in silence. The Mindari collective consciousness had been shattered, leaving individual minds to fend for themselves for the first time in centuries. The Valerian technological supremacy had proven worthless against weapons designed by engineers rather than artists. The Corvan warrior tradition had crumbled before soldiers who actually knew how to fight. "The terms of peace are simple," Lisa announced to the assembled survivors. "The galaxy will be governed by those who understand that peace exists only when those willing to fight for it are stronger than those who would break it." President Carlos Martinez appeared on the main screen from Earth. Behind him, Lisa could see the lights of Geneva, the same city where humanity had planned this moment for 3,000 years. "Any species that wishes to maintain its peaceful ways may do so," Martinez said, "under human protection. Any species that wishes to rebuild its military may do so, under human oversight. Any species that wishes to challenge human authority may do so once." The threat was clear. Humanity had demonstrated that they could end any war before it truly began. Jake Morrison, now appointed as Earth's Governor General for Galactic Affairs, stepped forward. He no longer looked like the casual diplomat who had laughed at the Council's declaration of war. He wore a simple black uniform with silver stars on his collar, and his eyes held the weight of absolute authority. "The new galactic government will operate on human principles," Jake announced. "Peace through strength, vigilance through preparation, freedom through the willingness to fight for it." He activated a holographic display that showed the new reality of galactic civilization. Human peacekeeping forces were establishing bases on key worlds throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors but as guardians who would ensure that the galaxy never again became so complacent that war seemed impossible. Commander Steve Walsh, A young officer with kind eyes and a gentle manner was given the task of overseeing the transition. His job was to help alien civilizations understand their new place in the galaxy without crushing their spirits completely. "We're not here to rule over you," Steve told the assembled leaders. "We're here to protect you from yourselves. For 3,000 years you lived in peace because you forgot that peace is a choice that must be defended every day. We remembered so you could forget." On worlds throughout the galaxy, human peacekeepers were already at work. They didn't terrorize the local populations or impose harsh military rule. Instead, they simply made their presence known and waited. The knowledge that humanity was watching, that humanity was ready, was enough to prevent any thoughts of future wars. Dr. Angela Green was put in charge of the new Galactic Research Council. Her job was to ensure that the technologies of war remained in responsible hands, while allowing peaceful research to continue. "Science," Angela told a gathering of alien researchers, "is a tool. Like any tool, it can build or destroy. We will help you build. But if you try to use it to destroy, you'll discover just how creative human engineers can be with building weapons." The doomsday weapons remained hidden but ready, a constant reminder that humanity's patience had limits. General Dan Murphy established the new Galactic Military Academy on Mars. Young beings from across the galaxy came to learn the difference between playing at war and preparing for it. They learned human tactics, human strategy, and human philosophy about the role of warriors in a peaceful society. "A warrior's job," Dan told his students, "is not to fight wars. A warrior's job is to make sure wars never happen. You fight so others don't have to. You prepare for battles so those battles never come. That's what makes you a guardian instead of a killer." Major Kate Sullivan's Psi Corps became the galaxy's psychic police force, ensuring that telepathic species used their abilities responsibly. The Mindari, broken but not destroyed, slowly learned to function as individuals while their former collective knowledge was preserved and protected. Power without responsibility is tyranny, Kate taught her psychic students. Whether that power comes from technology, numbers, or mental abilities doesn't matter. If you can affect others, you have a duty to protect them. A year after the war ended, the galaxy had settled into its new reality. Trade resumed between worlds. Art and culture flourished under human protection. Scientific research advanced faster than ever before, guided by human oversight that ensured it served peaceful purposes. But the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about peace itself. On the garden world of Kepler 442b, a small alien child asked her teacher, Professor Nancy Stone, why humans had maintained their military when everyone else had achieved peace. Nancy was a kind woman with graying hair who had spent 20 years teaching alien children about human culture. She knelt down to the child's level and smiled gently. "Because someone has to remember," Nancy said softly, "that peace isn't the natural state of the universe. Peace is a choice that must be defended every single day. We chose to be the ones who remember, so that everyone else could forget. That's what makes us human." The child thought about this for a moment. "But doesn't that make you sad? Always having to be ready for war?" Nancy's smile grew wider. "No, little one. It makes us proud. We carry that burden so you can grow up in a galaxy where war is just a story in history books. We stand guard so you can sleep safely. We remember darkness so you can live in the light." Around the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on a million worlds. Children who had never known war learned about the price of peace from teachers who understood that freedom wasn't free. In the rebuilt council chamber, a new motto was inscribed above the main entrance in every galactic language: Si vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Below it, in smaller letters, was a second line that only humans could read: We prepared. We remember. We watch. The 3,000-year peace was over, but something better had taken its place. Not the absence of war, but the presence of those willing to fight for peace. Not the ignorance of conflict, but the wisdom to prevent it. And in the depths of space, on hidden bases and secret stations, human warriors continued their eternal vigil, ready to remind the galaxy whenever necessary that peace was not a gift from the universe. It was a promise from humanity, a promise written in the language that every predator understands. Overwhelming force in the service of those who cannot protect themselves. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Peace was not about evolving beyond war. Peace was about being so good at war that no one wanted to test you. And humanity, the galaxy's self-appointed guardians, were very good at war indeed.